How's everybody doing today? Good? I hope so. Alright, so before I start breaking down with what I've been talking about for a while, December never was a month of change, to be honest. It was the transitional month that is going to cause the change. January is when it's going to happen. There's a possibility that the first week of January may be tranquil, but the second week, I'm pretty positively sure something is going to come out of that. Before I go into all the detail first, I just want to kind of share a little experience with you guys because I noticed that a lot of you young forecasters that are into the weather deal with a lot of belittling and whatnot. So I'm just going to share a quick personal story, but I'm not going to get, I'm going to keep it confidential. I'm not going to say names. I'm sure people know what I'm talking about. And if you open your mouth about it, then, well, I can't stop you from doing that. I'm also going to be putting a link down in my video, in my description, explaining, what's the difference between bragging about yourself and advertising yourself. Because I feel like a lot of people get the two mixed up and confused and don't even know what the two definitions even mean. But before I do that, I'm just going to explain my story real quick. A couple months ago, I toured a facility, and I was really looking forward to it. Well, it turns out once I got there, touring went to belittling. And, I felt like I was having a personal attack on me. And the thing was, a lot of the things that I was attacked for or accused about, I have 3 mentors, okay? And PhD affiliates, researchers, they all teach me stuff, okay? So what I learned is from them. But they didn't just recruit me as their apprentice because they wanted to. I was already way ahead of myself in meteorology. I started at such a very young age in getting professional at college level when I was an incredibly young individual. And my accelerated process of learning and my cognitive abilities just took off. So anyways, going back to what I was saying before, this was going on right in front of my parents. And like I said, I'm not going to say names or company names, but if you guys want to spread this, okay, and open your mouths about it, you're just getting me more followers. You're advertising me, all right? Business 101 right over there. I'm going to put that link down in the description because when you advertise yourself, you are promoting yourself to patrons, okay? There are people out there that don't like when other people talk about themselves, and that's okay. But the amount of bitterness and belittling has to stop. I mean, even from professionals. I was, at this facility, doing this tour, and I walked out like, I don't want to work for this company. I don't. I'm going for my PhD, my RSL researching license, and the thing is, I do not have any degree yet, but my meteorology professor, she allows me to teach the class and critique and grade because I know a lot of stuff. Too much for my level and age with no degree. And it's the truth. I busted my ass off, and the thing is, people get so bitter, it's ridiculous. Instead of letting them motivate you to become better, you want to go and attack that individual, which is crazy. Regardless, I'm not going to change, alright? If you think that I come off as braggy when I'm doing nothing but a service to people, I always am there to help people. Not only that, teach people how to forecast, young kids. I want to get the forecast right for people because their life and that balance may be in my hand when it comes to a winter storm or something. So after I did this tour of this facility, my parents were disgusted after how I was treated. I told my mentors what happened, and they were absolutely shocked and disgusted. And I completely said, even if they offered me any position, I would turn them down. I could not work for a company like that. So I'm just sharing you guys my little personal story, that if you feel like that you're being attacked or you're being oppressed or belittled, do not take that, okay? Because you are a lot better than that. You are worth more than that. And it's really sad that, a lot of professionals are doing it. I mean, yeah, I don't have a degree. I know a lot because I pushed myself. I burnt my brain out. And, it's sad that I know more than a lot of degree holders. But it's because I started when I was like 9 or something. I really got, like, professional with it. So, I just kind of wanted to share this, with you. Alright? So now let's hop back over to the meteorological perspective of things. So this whole storm conversation and talk about, oh, there's going to be a storm next week, the snow, the rain. Well, we have to understand one thing. I said, and I still do continue to believe this, that a storm will develop. The question is, where is the area of convergence going to begin? And that is what you have to ask yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this program, Winnie.ty, and we're going to fast forward in time. I'm going to move this up over here, and it's kind of lagging. Alright, we're going to go over to, say, Friday 4th, maybe? Let's see. My computer's being slow, so I apologize for that. Right here. Alright, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of let it play out, and I said before, it's going to pop up around the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So just keep your eyes in that area because an area of convergence is going to happen, and also if you check the SST and NUM, it's right there. Started in North Carolina and started going up the coast. Now, okay, if I pause this real quick, alright, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in so you guys can kind of see the thermal setup of what's going on. Your high pressure system is anchored up over here, and that is not a good place for it because you are taking a maritime polar air mass, which is almost like a stale cold air mass, and it's not really coming down to help us. It's not really doing, it's like a moderate stale air mass. You want that to be in Ontario because you're taking that continental polar or even continental Arctic air mass down, alright? We're going to zoom in here real quick. And we're going to go over to our temperature readings. Now, it's around 1,000 millibars, okay? It has a lot of pressure surrounding it, especially up in New England where, winds are going to be higher with this system up there. But we're going to go over to the temperature real quick, and we're going to see basically how the thermal is set up. So basically, your thermal gradient setup, the I-95 cities are like several miles, not that far. Some areas could be snowing in the interior. I'm not going into any detail about that, but this is showing you what's going on right over here and how you need the high pressure system to basically be west of those blues, because if you take the axis of the blues over here, alright, what you're going to do is, hopefully this will come up properly. Alright, good. Please don't freeze on my computer. Alright, hopefully, hang on one second. Okay, so this cold right over here will basically kind of tilt. So basically that cold air would fill in like these areas over here because you're taking that cold air and you're shifting it. And that's what I want to see. And I have not seen that on the models yet. That's what I want to see. And until I see that, I'm not going to be convinced that there's going to be any snowstorm or anything like that, but you guys should not be expecting any big storms yet. I mean, if we go back to our teleconnections, okay, we are not favorable for storm systems, really. Snowstorms, stuff like that. So we go back over to our teleconnections real quick, and like I said, December is not going to be the month. I know that, some people were saying that, and you know what? I respect that. I don't go putting people down because they think that. You want to think that? It's you, and I commemorate you for coming up with that conclusion. But what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the NAO real quick, and as you can see, it's not going negative, okay? Those ensembles over here, after a certain point, it's going positive, alright? This is not good if you want a snowstorm to per se. That's not going to happen. Another thing when we go back, okay, if we go over to our PNA, the thing is about the PNA, it is coming positive. The ridge placement is very important because if the ridge axis parks up over Montana, so basically if I were to go over real quick to say, you know what? Because this computer is lagging right now, and I'm doing a lot of stuff in the background, so I'm going to kind of like bootleg it and cut corners. Alright? You want this ridge axis to be in Montana. So what I mean by that is, the axis, you could have a positive PNA, which is good, that's great. But if your axis is not placed properly, neither is your storm or any of your cold being funneled down. Basically, you want it to come up like this and come back down like that. You want that kind of axis for the ridge. And if it's a little bit bigger, that's fine, but you need the point, the crest area, which is the top of the ridge, to pierce right through the Billings, Montana area. So we don't have that on the models either. But I think that they will try and get a little bit closer to that idea. I do not think at this time that will happen. If we go back over to our Arctic oscillation, you don't have any cold air. That cold air is not going to come down either. So you need that high pressure system to anchor in Ontario and drive that cold air down. Okay? Because the storm's going to go from 1,000 millibars to 990, and it's not cold enough to really manufacture its own cold air to really allow I-95 to get a nice little healthy snowstorm. That's not going to happen at this time. Most likely it will not. So basically, you just want to know the overall pattern is changing transitionally. We have to focus on more cold shot intrusions and more storm development. These storms are going to be warm at first. They're going to start to transition to slop mixed storms, and eventually you will get your snowstorms. But that's not going to be until at least the first or most likely the second week of January, and probably last into March. So listen to what I basically said. Keep this information in mind, and you will understand where I'm coming from. All right. If we go over real quick, oops, thank God I have a lot of time still to do this video. I didn't think I was going to be able to. If we go over real quick to Earth, here is an excellent example of what is going on. Okay, if we check the vorticity of our jet stream, you have a barreling low in the desert Southwest. Now this is our split flow that's starting to happen on the West Coast, but it's not there yet. You can see that you have the flow coming down over here with the polar, and then you have, the subtropical. So our split flow is there. It's just not at the right spot. Okay? You have a trough in Greenland, a ridge southeast of Iceland. This setup is not there yet, but we are getting there. Okay? We're going to go over to Siberia real quick, because now what we're starting to see, and keep in mind, I've been tracking this trough for a while. This trough was west, or right in this area over here. It's starting to shift east. This trough, once it really locks up east of Japan, that is when you're going to start to see the increased potential of storms. When Japan, particularly northern Japan, starts to get snow, look somewhere on the east coast 10 days later for a possibility of a storm. I'm not saying snow, but there's a good correlation to that because of the winds and the jet stream going downstream. So keep that in mind, and you'll really be able to understand how the atmosphere works, like putting a puzzle piece together. Real quick, what I just want to go over is I'm going to go to the polar vortex, which if you want to actually see the polar vortex, you're going to have to go pretty high up in the atmosphere, borderline the stratosphere. It did move. It moved in a much better area, because before we were pretty much blocked from getting that cold air. So the polar jet is intensifying because of the polar vortex's flow. And you can see that the jet stream and the polar vortex, if I were to flip back to the jet stream real quick before this thing, the timer, cancels on me. Here we go. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong one. That's the surface. I'm trying to cram in as much as possible. So you see right where the crosswind sections are, they're coming back down, and you're getting a split flow from the polar jet. So just hang tight, guys, because that winter pattern will come through. And remember, there's no limit to what you can learn if you hit books. That's what I did and what I'm doing now. Don't belittle others, okay? Be willing to help, but don't be afraid to take pride and advertise yourself. I have PhD knowledge, and it's okay for me to say that, because I have verification from my mentors, and I know myself. And I've seen what PhD holders have, what they do, and we have the same knowledge of information. I would like to get my RSL researching license to change a lot of things in meteorology to make everyone's lives easier, make forecasting easier, because a lot of things in other areas are not articulated into meteorology. But just focus on this upper pattern, what's going on right now, okay? Once you start to see that transition begin to continue, we will get our storms. But you have to wait till January. Okay, people made forecasts for December. I was not for it, but January, it's pretty much hell is going to break loose in January. And like I said, I will be posting that link down in the description of my YouTube video. All right, do not be afraid to advertise yourself, even if you come off as bragging. Okay, because it works. It helps. Even if people don't like it, your employers will. You'll get hired. You'll get into an administrative position much quicker. And my mom's side of the family is a perfect example of that. All entrepreneurs, same mentality, but still willing to be the type to give back to the community. All right, you guys have a great night.